Yep.
And we are live. Welcome in. It's Dan Roberts, host of the Daily Detour. My guest today is Phillip Kopczynski. He is a comedian, he's an actor, he's an author. And although he doesn't hold a degree in this, to my knowledge, I consider him an expert in the field of medicine. So welcome, Phillip Kopczynski.
Hey, what's going on, Dan?
Phil Kop, as some people call you, right?
Yeah. I go by that occasionally when I don't have the patience to spell my last name phonetically.
It is kind of difficult. I feel like everybody's name is like I can get it usually, and I thought I had yours, but inevitably I'm either dropping the C or the Z. And then I feel like an idiot because I'm like, it's not that. Like I know he gets this all the time from people, but it shouldn't be that hard for us, you know.
Hey man, I mean, I've had the name for 40 years, and it's never gotten easier. And I can always tell like how small a town a person's from when they're like, how do you spell it? What's your name? I'm like Kopczynski, and then I spell it, and they're like, whoa, my goodness. So yeah, so the other day I was given Amanda's. I was signing something, and Amanda had to sign it, and he's like, "Oh, did your wife used to have the name Smith? Oh, poor girl." And I was like,
if
I don't know, man.
If she had the name Smith, trust me, she was thrilled to get the name Kopczynski.
Yeah,
who wants to be the 10 billionth Smith? And I say this with all the love in the world. My wife was a Smith before she married me. As common as my name is, Roberts was better than Smith, or less common than Smith, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, people...
Or better. Could be better.
Was that for her or for me?
That was for whoever might be joining us at some point.
Yeah, man. I don't know. I kept my full last, like, rather than try to use like a showbiz name, because I thought maybe people would see it and be like, oh, maybe this dude's ethnic. Like, they'll make him special.
I so regret not having a stage name. I was talked out of a stage name early in my career, and I really want to be. And my wife put her foot down, but I'm like, I want to be Dan Halen. Like that, I think that's hilarious. Like if my next gig is at a rock station, I gotta go with Dan Halen. That's hilarious.
I don't know. I think if you're gonna do that, you gotta go like 90s. Hey, what's up? It's Dan Halen here, coming at you, rocking with my socks off right now. I got static electricity flowing through me. All right, guys, who's our next talker? It's Phil Kopczynski.
Oh my god.
Yeah. There's a couple of those guys left in the industry. I've mainly the markets I work. I don't think they're in big cities anymore.
Well, I mean, and this is going to get me in trouble since I am actively looking for gigs out there, but like I won't name anybody, but they're just some cheesy. I mean, Dan Halen to me is much better than some of the other show names that I've seen out there.
Oh yeah.
They're just,
Yeah, radio is berserk. Even now, I mean, like there's a big guy, I think it's out of the LA market, like Charlemagne the God or whatever. Like, I'm like, dude, come on. Like,
did you and that's a whole other thing. I'm not even thinking of that, but it's just like, it's like tree cutter and buzzsaw in the morning.
Yeah, right. Yeah, did you decide on that before?
It's mac and cheese in the morning. No.
Man, I would love to be one of those executives just walking into the room like, hey, gravy train, hey, weasel,
That's it. And then you
the
put
ratings
that on your
haven't been
resume. Then you have to put that on your resume. Well, I worked for 5 years with what did you say?
Gravy train and the weasel.
Took them to number 1. I don't know. It's just weird to me. But anyway.
Yeah, everybody associated with that show's got to put that on their resume. I was the sound producer for Gravy Train and the Weasel. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Remember them?
I have follow-up questions from the last time I talked to you, but first I want to give people a taste of your comedy, Phil. So we got permission from Dry Bar to share the following clip based on your experience as a father and a Cub Scout father. So here we go.
My youngest son just went from Cub Scout to Boy Scout. That's a big deal, because that means no more Pinewood Derby. You guys know. No, those dads are liars, man. They show up with like a scale model replica of a 57 Chevy. They're like, man, my son carved that. Your son carved that. And when you say your son, you mean that 7-year-old with his pants on backwards? The one with the zipper on his butt crack, wide open. His underwear's hanging out like a horse's diaper. That kid carved that? Well, let me ask you this. When he was doing the detailed pinstriping, did he uncross his eyes? It would make me so mad, because my son did it himself every year. So he shows up with like an untouched block of wood on wheels. His name's misspelled on the side. He's got a Kit Kat bar just glued to the top of the thing. But he's proud, because he built it. And he knows no matter what, win or lose, we're going to sit down as father and son after that race. And we are going to eat the roof of that car together.
It's good stuff, man.
I miss Skinny Phil.
How did Dry Bar, how did that come about?
Yeah, so I was trying to chase a credit because it's being a comic is sort of like being a college professor. It's like got to publish or perish. I mean, if you don't have some kind of credit, you're not going to headline or anything. And so I was doing a lot of I was going down to LA trying to do like festivals or spots and just trying to understand the market down there and meet with I was doing other like contests, trying to meet people like industry people that might get like on a Conan or a Tonight Show, and that just seemed overwhelming. Like you had to definitely know the right person. I mean, it was less about your comedy because there's a lot of people with a good 5 to 7 minutes. It's more about your ability to network, and Dry Bar, fell into my wheelhouse with the people that I was just fellow comics who I knew. When Dry Bar's first year, they pulled probably, I want to say, 3 comics that I knew personally, and then that's not me.
That's my ring doorbell. Yeah.
So I knew a lot of people who had done Dry Bar, and so I was able to work in there, and also I can. You got to be like squeaky clean to do
right
Dry Bar for them. Yeah, and also this is kind of an interesting thing in Spokane. There's a comic. That used to own a comedy club with 2 other comics. This is like in the 80s. He was a radio DJ down in LA. And anyway, one of the people who he used to own the club with is the booker for Dry Bar.
Oh,
so
wow.
Yeah, so it's like, there is kind of a like who type of thing.
Sure.
So yeah, but it still took like a year and a half.
Was that the Comedy Underground?
Uncle D's Comedy Underground. So Don Parkins owned that, and his good friend Nick Tyson was like there all the time. I mean, he was literally like every weekend you go there. If Nick didn't have a gig, he's there doing a guest spot or whatever. And so Nick used to own a club with the Keith, the guy that owns Wise Guys Comedy Clubs now in Utah, and then he's also the booker for Dry Bar. So I wound up meeting Keith, and his kids are in Boy Scouts, so that helped a lot. I mean, dude, it's funny because people want to break it down to like schmoozing and networking, but really it is about having a connection and building relationships with people.
Yeah.
And
it's not about waiting to be discovered, as so many things in life are not. You gotta you gotta hustle.
Yeah. When people are like, "Oh, this guy just came about," it's like, are you gonna dismiss the 15 years of killing on the road, like with no one hearing about you? Like that. Go ahead.
Oh no! Well, I was gonna say, so you have to be squeaky clean for Dry Bar.
Yeah.
And yet I saw you perform with Stormy Daniels, and you were actually dirtier than her, I would say.
Right.
So which do you prefer, clean comedy or?
It's funny you say that because I mean I was on the road a lot before doing Dry Bar, just trying to really I had to change a lot of things and just hone it in. And when I finally did it, I showed Amanda, my wife, and she was like, you're funnier when you swear. Cause like, I mean, that is just who I am, that's my natural persona. I mean, I don't mind working clean or doing corporate gigs, where you have to be clean. but it is definitely not the brand that I want to like put forward. Like
Right,
on all
it's
my
not-
shows.
I
Yeah.
might see you and you're not going to be cussing up a storm maybe that particular night, but you're not like branding yourself as, squeaky clean comic.
No, not at all. No, in fact,
I
I
do
don't.
kids parties and
I mean, I don't. It's not that I swear a lot. It's just that I just talk about things that people get really are like,
I never
whoa,
even-
I don't.
That's a conversation I had with Andrew Rivers, who I'm positive that you know. But
Oh yeah, yeah.
I never considered. I'm a very dark. My comedy can be very dark. My humor, which is great on a podcast. I mean, you got to dial it back on the radio. Sometimes
For sure.
But I never considered that as something that like a dry bar might consider that. That's also taboo. I don't consider it dirty, but it almost is. He said he had to clean up some of his darker jokes. It wasn't that they were about sex or they included cussing, but they included topics that were, not for that audience, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you really don't want to even like for dry bar. You don't want to joke about like infidelity. You certainly wouldn't want to take on like
But
weird.
it's in the Bible, Philip. There's infidelity in there.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to bring up
Also murder and other things. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
You can talk about murder. I mean, no one cares about whenever someone's turning off the TV for their kids, it's never like, oh, this is too violent. This X-Men show is too violent. It's always like, there's a half a nipple. Don't let the kids see half a nipple. And it's like, dude, come on.
It's true.
Yeah, that's an American thing, by the way. I think dude, I saw some violent movie.
I want to say hey to Billy Schuster really quick. Sorry. Go ahead, Phil.
Oh yeah, what's up, Billy Schuster? Nice weight lace.
If you have a question or comment, just jump in.
Yeah, that's an American. I lived in Britain for like 6 months maybe, and at one point I watched like a Die Hard type movie in the movie theater, and after consuming their media and consuming the television, I was just like, this is so violent. Like, you don't realize how desensitized you get to it.
It's true. I'm not one of those guys that blames the video games or the media on the violence. I think we have an appetite for it, but sometimes I do feel like I've really gotten into crime shows again, like the last couple of years, and I realize
yeah, that's what I mean.
How many murders am I seeing every night before I go to bed?
And they're never. It's never
a painting or something for once.
It's never normal too.
It's
like
death? Yeah,
it's like their entire brain cavity was filled with semen and blood. You're like, how did that happen? Are we gonna? And it's just like the ocular cavity was completely torn apart. It's just like
right. Well, and now they. And then they'll say something like, "Looks like somebody didn't pass their eye exam." So it's fun. It's morbid and funny, and I don't know. It's weird. It is a weird thing. We watch Bones. We've been watching Bones, which I never caught back in the day. It's like a Fox cop show.
Now I know the show. Yeah.
They are pushing over the years, over the seasons, the deaths. And the autopsies become more and more gruesome. Just what you're talking about. Like there'll be sludge coming out of someone's eye socket. And it's like, well, you're just trying to punch my buttons now. Like you're just doing this to see if I can continue watching.
Yeah.
And we
man. They got it. It's their jump the shark moment is like, okay, what orifice has not been filled with semen and fecal matter? Like that's basically their jumping the shark.
It is nutty.
And what kind of serial killers?
Go ahead. What?
Well, I was just like, what kind of serial killers are they trying to recreate on those shows? Can't you doesn't someone just ever just shoot someone?
Yeah, I love it. Actually, I love Bones because it is so gruesome and it is also very funny. And it's also got heart, Phil. It's got a lot of heart. Always ends with a warm fuzzy after putting you through that. But I do because it reminds me, I used to love horror movies growing up. Yeah. And their special effects team is top notch on, but I actually love seeing what they come up with. But it also makes me laugh at how disgusting it is.
What I like is a lot of people watch those shows like the last thing they do, like they're in their pajamas, a lot of times laying in bed, and it's just like oh, this is relaxing. This is how I'm gonna.
No,
this is like my meditation before I fall asleep.
My wife and I, and that's how they schedule them. But now we can stream and program our own nights. So my wife and I, we always have what's called a palate cleanser. We got to watch a comedy or something warm and
Yeah,
fuzzy
right.
after all that. You can't just go to bed after, and you really can't go to bed after a cliffhanger show. Like its gruesome end hasn't resolved anything.
Oh, I know.
I can't sleep.
That's kind of what I hate about like modern television watching, because I'm like, listen, if I'm gonna like this show, I gotta spend a whole week. This is my weekend. This is my whole weekend now. I time with the kids, done working out, done. Like I'm just gonna sit here for 8 hours and watch half of the entire season of Sopranos or something.
Yeah. So I'm going to backtrack because I'm so jealous that you lived somewhere else for 6 months. You got to live in the UK for 6 months.
Yeah. What I was like 20. Yeah, I was like, yeah. So it was like I did.
Dude, that's how you do your 20s. Good for you.
So it was well. I was 20. I think I turned 21 while I was over there. So that was really anticlimactic because as soon as I got there, I'm like, I can buy all the booze I want. Okay, this is great. Yeah, because they're 18 over there,
Yeah.
but they kind of don't care.
The beer is stronger.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. Especially when you're 20 and you haven't spent a lifetime.
You can pop open a Miller or something over there, and first of all, it tastes better for some reason, and then it's stronger.
Well, it's imported.
And I'm a craft beer guy, but honest to God, man.
Yeah,
they're another animal over there.
They're normal beer, and I can't even think of it. I mean, there were so many brands of beer. Well, it's like craft beers now in the U.S.
Yeah.
So after a while, I just like point, but they'd serve it like room temperature, which is you get used to that. But that's like if you want a cold beer, you got to order like a Guinness or get cans of beer and throw it in your own fridge or whatever. It's a whole different culture though. Like when I was over there,
I went to Ireland. I didn't go to Britain, so I didn't experience the warm.
Oh yeah, they serve it cold there. Yeah, it is where they their pub culture in the UK is like when I was there, they closed down at 11. You would like 2 a.m. even on the weekends. It was like only like hardcore dance clubs that would and they had to have their own special license.
Yeah.
So everything would close at 11, and I'm not kidding you. I was in a small town, probably smaller than Spokane. It was Norwich, about 3 hours north of London. And at 11:10, these people so 10 o'clock is last call. Guys are just boom, boom. I mean, they're just like, oh, we got to get all this in. And at 11:10, you have got piles of puke all over the place from people binge drinking for an hour to fit it all. It was a huge debate. They're like, let these drunks stay in the bar for a little longer. I just learned.
Do you know the old Men at Work song, Land Down Under?
Come from a land yeah. No, I know that song. Yeah.
And it's got this line about it's like I think it's women. I don't know what the women are doing. Women glow or something, and it says and men chunder. I just found out that chunder means throwing up everywhere. Basically, the men chunder. That's a lyric to a song. They go out and they chunder.
Yeah, So I saw a stag party in the UK one time. There's like this row where there were all these clubs, and these guys took their buddy. This is their friend who's going to get married like in 2 days, and they got him just hammered. And then they took him out into the median in the street, tied him to a pole, like to where his hands are kind of handcuffed around, and then his feet were handcuffed. And then they take his pants off. They wrestle his pants off, so he's no pants or underwear, buck naked from the shirt down. And I mean hundreds of people are just watching him while he's buck naked, drunk. He's fumbling with himself, and then like all these women were coming up to him, and I'm like, oh, good, they're gonna help this poor man. This is so messed up. And all they did was take his shoes off and then take pictures of themselves with him. And
that's wrong.
It was pretty brutal. I was like, these people are animals. Like, you get this idea of like, oh, it's so sophisticated. Ooh, right. Downton Abbey. And I get over there and they're like, these wankers are. I'm like, dude, these people are just maniacs, just like everyone else.
Wow. Ireland was maybe I don't know. I guess there is a difference. They're not that far away, but Ireland was just full of really friendly. I found myself smiling and waving at strangers, and by that time, before I got back to the States, which was only like it was like almost 3 weeks there. But I'm like, people in the States are going to look at me like I'm a crazy person. You don't make eye contact in Seattle, let alone smile and wave at strangers,
Did you go to Dublin?
Went everywhere. We rented a car and
cool.
drove around the island. Yeah, it was awesome.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. I wish I went there for a little bit, but I never really left Dublin, and I was like, man, this isn't green at all. What are they talking about? It's gray everywhere.
No, it was oddly, it was sunny when we were there for most of the trip, which is not normally it would look like Seattle, like overcast constantly.
Right.
And yeah, no, it was a good time. Tell me about. I'm gonna just totally switch gears. Well, first of all,
Yeah.
I gotta know. So it's a COVID era of comedy, and I know that last time we talked, you were going to do a show in the wild, wild west of Idaho, is what you called it, which was a comment that got a texter all riled up at both of us for some reason. Just so you know, but which was they're like, you guys stay in Washington with your COVID, and I was like, I mean, we were locked down, and they did have stuff. It wasn't like a completely inaccurate statement, but anyway, you were going to perform at some club called the Honey Social.
Yeah, the Honey Social Club. Yeah,
How did
they
that
were
go? And what the hell is
great.
that?
It went great. They actually, what was fun, I mean, this isn't funny maybe, but so I don't know if you know this, like in so Coeur d'Alene's wide open. I don't know if you've been over there. It's
I am a hermit. I live in I actually, after this, I'm going to lock myself in a display case. I just don't want out. Yeah.
yeah, I saw you cower when your doorbell went off. Like, someone?
Yeah, and then I just well, I thought it was an invasion or something. Then I remembered it's just somebody stealing a package off my porch. So it's all good. Anyway, yeah.
So it went good. But if you haven't been to Coeur d'Alene, it is wild. I had a friend of mine from Seattle come open for me, and he was like, it was like culture shock for him. I mean, he was looking around like, this is like time travel. I'm not used to this. I don't feel good because they're not like we're doing, like we just in Washington, we just bumped up to like 25% capacity in certain counties, and that's kind of like a big deal. They, by law, they never. Some places aren't even doing like social distancing over there. So no masks, full capacity. It's wild. I was calling it. I was like, man, this is seductively irresponsible over here, because you can just go over there and just forget about coronavirus, forget about everything.
That's the name of your next podcast. Seductively irresponsible with K. That's
dude,
awesome.
It was a ton of fun, but yeah, for about a week, I was like, I should probably isolate. I was whatever it is, 10 days.
Yeah.
My buddy that came with me, I mean, he was so freaked out. He just went out and got a test because he's like, I have it. I know I have it. I know I have it. He didn't.
Yeah.
But what's funny, the act that was going to be there the next week lives in Idaho. He wound up getting COVID, and they stopped doing comedy. So he's fine. But
well, that is hilarious, Phil.
he wound up being fine, but. There's no way.
As soon as I don't think I'll relax. I don't think my butt cheeks will open again until I get the vaccine. And then I think I'm good. And you could still get it, but at that point, I don't know. At some point I gotta pull the bandage off and re-enter society. But until I get that vaccine, I think I'm sheltering.
Yeah, well, I've been hanging it. Well, so my friends that were going over to Coeur d'Alene, they all got it over the summer. Oh, so the fact that they got it though, and then they recovered, I'm like, well, I can hang out with you guys. So, because you guys are safe, you got it and you recovered. So I'm like, I'm not gonna catch it from you. You guys can't get it, right? It's my so I've been hanging out with them, and one of them is like a 23-year-old young comic who we were skiing together up at Schweitzer, and I'm like, oh yeah, coronavirus is nothing, and I'm brave, and even though I'm 40, I don't care, I'm out here. And then he ran into a bunch of his friends, and I'm like slowly slinking away, like, I don't know their medical history, I'm not as brave anymore.
Yeah, they don't. That gets buried in the news that we hear about COVID, but they do recommend that slightly older people hang out with young 23-year-olds on ski slopes drinking craft beers and
they were craft,
breathing their hot breath on each other. That's
I gotta say, it's been so I performed in Idaho, Montana, Oregon during coronavirus, to varying degrees of responsibility. Sometimes I've gone into situations have been like, yo, this is not safe, I shouldn't be doing this. Washington just opened up to do small shows with like 6 people, and that is by far the safest I have felt during the pandemic doing comedy. And it's fun.
Like what is that like to do stand up for that few people? Is that like which gets your butterflies in your stomach going more, that or like a big crowd?
Man, I don't know. A bit. I mean, it's I don't know. It's all like the things. Somehow I don't know. It's more like excitement usually for me if I'm doing a show. If I'm doing a bigger show, like if I'm doing a theater or something, it's more. I don't know. It's less about being nervous, more about like it's just like when you're a kid and Christmas is the next day and you're like I can't sleep.
Right.
That's kind of the way I feel about like bigger shows. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the small crowds to me sometimes can be harder because like it's a different it's a different skill set. Late like you
Yeah.
because you run into it a lot for like late shows on Saturday, especially because a lot of times those people have been drinking since noon
Oh
or
yeah.
whatever. It's not
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Friday where they've been working and then they've only there's a limit to how much they've been doing. So late shows on Saturday, even late shows on Friday too, can get a little nuts. But it's usually smaller crowds. They're sometimes more fatigued, and and when it's a small crowd, I would say the biggest difference is as opposed to a big crowd. If someone heckles you, you can kind of engage and like I don't know, you could be a little harsher. But like when you have six people, you don't want to walk one of them. So if someone heckles you, you got to be like, all right, let's just chat. Let's have a
Right.
conversation. There might be,
Right.
yeah, it might
It's
get,
it's, it's almost like an in-person cameo or something, like
yeah,
at
it
some point.
is. Yeah, it's like, it's like being at a party and you're talking to two people and next thing you notice, six people are listening to you and you're like, oh, I'm kind of holding court right now. But don't want to mess this.
Yeah, I guess you go in knowing that you're a pro. Like when I've had to like I do much better with like doing concert announcements, right? At like out at the casino or something. There's 2,000 people there or whatever there, but it's like they're just a wallpaper in front of me, you know?
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Like that that's easier to me than like if I had to do it like speak to six people, I think I would just shrivel up and die. I don't know. I might get maybe after it got the ball rolling, but like I would be so uptight headed into that, I think.
It's yeah, it's I mean you get used to it after. Yeah, you definitely definitely doing an hour in front of six people can be a little daunting because a lot of but I will say these are different in the sense that so this is a kind of a boutique experience you're giving these people. So they're renting the club.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, for whatever it is. And so they're very invested. I mean, they're invested financially. This is like what they're doing with their time. And right now, a lot of people, this might be the first thing they've been doing in like, 9 months or whatever, how long,
Right.
however long things have been shut down in Washington. So it's almost like they're almost an easy audience because they're so grateful just to be doing something. And it's also usually people that are all friends. That's what I mean. Well, because it's like people are going with their like bubble to do to go to these shows. Because I've done 6 of these in the past 2 weeks, and I thought they were great. But it's like new material that I've been doing. I'm like, I don't know if this is good or bad. These people could just be total maniacs and laughing at there because if they're laughing at something I'm saying that's edgy or whatever, I'm like, that could just be you 6 people that are freaks. I don't know if I
Right,
say this.
right.
Are you going to laugh if your boss is in the audience at what I just said? So it's, but
Well, that's
I've
an
liked
interesting
doing it.
thing, though. I don't know if that discredits the joke, though. That is an interesting thing, though, because it really does, like, certain jokes perform better with certain audiences. So then how do you know what to cut out, Like,
Yeah.
I guess if you perform in a packed club, and that joke doesn't work, it doesn't work. But
it's just repetition for me. It's just repetition. I mean,
yeah,
to really understand like what I would want to put on an album or like, I mean, that dry bar stuff, like dry bar, for an example, all that stuff I'd probably been doing for a lot of it, like 3 years, just as in my set over and over and over again. And a lot of times the first, 5 minutes that people put out there somewhere is something they've, done hundreds of times at different, open mics and clubs and for their gigs and whatever. So it's I don't know, man. I mean, it's definitely a grind, but then, every once in a while there is kind of the feel of like, I know this is going to be good. Just like I hit one out of the park like right away,
yeah.
I look at stand up as like there's classical music or jazz. Some people kind of finesse it note by note. And then there's like jazz musicians who kind of like, well, this is the basic structure, but it's going to be a little different every time,
Right.
Yeah. And I definitely, usually I feel like I'm doing better if I'm more like the classical, like if I'm change a couple words this time, change a couple words that time. And I just kind of whittle it into what I want,
I feel like it works better that way. I mean, I guess it depends on the personality, right? The
Oh yeah,
charisma,
totally.
the timing, whatever. But I like a joke that's like, this is funny because this is perfect. Like Seinfeld, like this has been crafted
Seinfeld's definitely a classic.
Yeah,
classic rock music or classic.
I mean, sometimes I hear
classical.
people say fun, like I'll watch a special and I'll hear them tell their stories, and it's funny and everything. But I feel like it could be funnier if it wasn't just. There's a lot of unnecessary words. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I don't know. I prefer old school a little bit, I guess. But funny's
Well,
funny.
I mean, they both have
Yeah.
existed for a long time. I mean, everyone like Dave Chappelle is very in the jazz category because I've heard that he'll tell the same joke, but it'll always kind of the energy will be different, and it's like he almost needs to have that that sort of weaving. Like there's an energy to saying something different every time,
Sure.
And it loses that energy. But like Chris Rock, like his every single word, gesture, intonation is like almost like a script. He actually did a special where he cut it, and it was him in different gigs, but it was him like carrying along the joke, and the joke was happening seamlessly even though it was cut with him performing it in different venues.
Right, so the background changed or whatever, but
his outfit, his background,
yeah.
Like so, but like he was even like walking with the same stride. I mean, it was pretty wild.
Is this the tambourine one?
No, it was one like 10 years ago.
A while back, yeah.
Yeah, but it's but he's another guy that's like every word and he's got so much intonation, like that his that his intonation is even like just the exact same every single time.
Yeah. That's interesting. I want to head back to the mountain because you said that you did 150 ski runs.
Oh
last month. What was that about? Do you have a death wish? What is
it really wasn't. It wasn't that bad. I rode my bike a lot this summer, so my legs were in good shape, even though I was like fatter than I've ever been because of COVID.
We're all a little larger than we were a year ago.
Dude, I got thickness. I saw my butt in the mirror, and I'm like, "Hun, you got to take some notes. You got to get one of these."
It is kind of in now, I guess.
Yeah, I'm like, wow. What do I need you for? I'll just grab my own butt. This is wiggly. So my legs are in good shape. And I wanted to, I don't know, I've always wanted to like just have a kind of a fitness goal, but around skiing, because I try to make goals around working out, and I'll stick with it for a week, and I'm like, I don't know, if going to the gym for me was part of my routine, and that is the one thing I have really, I'm just like, I can't justify going back to the gym. That to me, I'll get on a plane before I go to a gym at this point.
Your fellow gym goers weren't being careful before there was
right.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I'm Planet Fitness. You don't have to tell me, man. That's where homeless people go to shower, dude. I was worried about getting tinnitus.
Now I have to run a disclaimer. This program, these are the opinions of the guest and not the host of the show.
Man, dude, I have definitely seen people who are they were training to overtake the rich in Planet Fitness. Planet Fitness sometimes looks like one of those Al Qaeda training videos.
How so?
Just dudes with like long beards, but they're like, it's a different kind of long beard. It's like a full white beard and like a weird mustache and like maybe a dog with a handkerchief that's like, it's a service dog. No, it's not. You just came in from the corner.
When are we turning the corner on the long beards? It started with the Abe Lincoln beard, and now it does seem like the terrorist.
Oh, dude, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know what it went from. Like a manageable thing to like a Duck Dynasty.
Yes.
I can't work around conveyor systems anymore because I might rip my face off.
It went from barbershop quartet to that to Duck Dynasty. What is happening? And these are young people. These people don't understand that they're never going to look prettier than they are right now, and there are no photos to prove that they were ever good looking.
Right. It is wild, man. I mean, to see people who are like, man, like, dude, I know this dude that so at Starbucks you can get like a cup. I don't know if they still do this promotion, but if you get a cup, you can like between like, I don't know, like 1 and 4, you can get like a mocha refill for like $1 or whatever. Or you can get you can get their drip coffee for free if you bring in your cup from earlier in the day. I know this dude that is he's a successful contractor. This guy owns his own business, runs his own jobs, crazy, wild, burly beer. Walks into a Starbucks, he's like, I got this earlier today. And they're like, yeah, right. You pulled that out of the garbage can. Get out of here. And he got so mad. He's like, you guys are infringing on my, you're profiling me. Da, 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 da. And I think they eventually filled it, but he was telling the story and we're like, I don't know, like we would have probably, like I can imagine being one of those Starbucks people.
Yeah.
That was before though that they changed a lot of policies to where like they don't kick people out anymore.
Right. It is weird though, because that was a thing. We all have that bias in us, and like in Seattle, I used to joke like it was tough to tell like a billionaire from a homeless person because people would dress very casual, which I love. But if you bumped into them and they were talking to you, you might freak. There's no way you would guess they were like the CEO of their company or something.
Oh yeah,
what I mean, so.
One time I was at a party, and it was an orthopedic surgeon and a bunch of surgeons from like the hospital that Grey's Anatomy is at. They were all there. Yeah. They're drinking and listening to music and having a good time. And they rented a duplex, like a lower unit in a duplex. And they're like, yeah, I think our landlord's going to come around here pretty soon. He was working and had to go take a nap or whatever. And so at about 10 o'clock at night, this dude comes down like outside and then knocks on the door. It's a guy. He's got a Beavis and Butthead shirt, like a crappy, mismanaged beard, shirt everywhere, a hole near his, like you can see like some of his nipple hairs sticking out of it.
Areola.
Areola. And
Areola.
And sweats. That's your DJ name. Hey, what's up? It's Areola and the Goober coming at you. Oh, what is that? Dan Halen? No, that's Van Halen. So anyway,
and belly lint.
So this dude comes in and I'm like, are you the landlord? He's like, yeah. I'm like, where'd you come from? Did you just napping? He's like, no, I came from work. I'm a project manager at Microsoft. And he's like, he's like, on the map where you see the trees, like, that was me, whatever. And I'm thinking about moving to Paris with Google next year, but I don't know if they're going to meet my offer. I'm like, this guy.
I know. I've met people when I lived over there. I feel there was a couple times where I met people that could have changed my trajectory, but I didn't give them the time of day. Like you'd meet them at a party, like, and you're just like, you're full of crap. That's
right.
Like how can I get away from you as fast as possible?
Yeah, and yet that guy selling, like lotion at the mall is dressed up in a suit. So that's right. Where I have no idea. You can't make any judgments, man.
You go to Macy's to buy like in the men's department, and you're like, I'm not the right. I'm not in this guy's league. This guy checking me out, like he's got way more class than I do. What has happened? There is like an intimidation to that. But yeah, it's sort of like it's a mall store. Why am I intimidated by this dude with the cologne and the suit?
The first gig I ever did, because when I started doing comedy, I was like, man, all these other starting comics like dress like garbage. They just look like trash. They're going on stage with like ripped jeans and their hair's all messed up. And I was like, I'm gonna be like an old school guy. I'm gonna dress up for my gigs. So the first feature gig I had, I wore like tight dress pants, nice shoes, vest with like a dress shirt. I did my hair really nice, and I show up, and it was a now defunct honky tonk bar in Hayden, Idaho, and
just let that sit there for a second.
Yeah. And so,
Okay.
the guy who was the headliner, I had never not seen him in a suit. He was a really, really old guy. He'd been doing he'd been on the Merv Griffin show. Like he really,
yeah.
So I'd always seen him.
Killer. That's a reference for my older viewers, listeners, whatever.
So he shows up, and he's wearing like a sweatshirt and jeans. And I've never seen this guy like not in cologne, full on 3-piece suit. And I was like, is he going to change? And he's telling me about like how good the meal is here and all this. And he's not changing. The MC shows up, who had a lot more experience than me. And he looks at me and he's like, oh, you messed up. They're going to hate you. And, man, I showed up, and they basically, I don't know, this is a podcast, but I don't know if I can say this.
You can say
anyway,
anything you want.
Okay. So this gig was basically just me getting called a faggot for about 25 minutes by all these So, dude, these guys.
No, you didn't. You're saying. I mean, somebody called you that. So yeah.
Yeah. No, and I was, dude. It was so wild. One
You're
woman.
Saying they use that kind of language at a honky tonk.
Can you believe such a thing? This was 2014. And so these. What was fun, at one point, this woman was like, "You got a little bit in you. You got a little bit of whatever in you." She said, "I don't want to say it again."
No, we get it.
Yeah, she's like, "You got a little bit in you," and I was like, "Well, I had a big one in me earlier, but your boyfriend said not to say anything." And once I said that, the gig started turning a little bit, and it went okay. But I was like, I was
thinking you got a black eye after that, but it actually
no, because I mean, the reality, dude, people, if they're there to watch comedy, as long as you're not like an extreme jerk. I mean, that was a fun comeback. You know what I mean? I don't know. I mean, there are probably psychos out there. I've known people, especially during the Trump era, I've known more people that got punched or had threats of violence just because they were, and a lot of times for like silly jokes, Cheeto references. I've called Joe Biden a pedophile 3 times since he's been elected. Nothing's happened to me so far. So,
Well, this just got pulled down.
The Clintons are going to kill me.
Well, it's Mark Zuckerberg. Did you see that Saturday Night Live over the weekend with, I don't know the actor's name, but he did
the guy from The Office?
No, well, yeah.
Is that the one? Yeah.
Krasinski, yeah. But one of the SNL guys, who's the guy that played, I think he played Donald Trump. No, he played Eric Trump for the last 4 years. But he did a Mark Zuckerberg that basically just consisted of.
Oh yeah,
like being afraid. But it's like as soon as he did it, you recognized it's like that is what he looks like when he's
yeah.
Yeah,
I always wonder if on Saturday Night Live, if some of those, the people that like when an administration changes, there's got to be some of the people that work at Saturday Night Live, like, am I going to lose my job? Like, I can't.
Oh, for real.
I just honed in my Rudy Giuliani.
Back to the look, the dress. I could tell you, because I just heard a conversation about this too. I could tell you who is probably has the best defined look of a female comic. But I'm not sure who the guy would be. And you used to have Rodney Dangerfield with his tie, right? Oh, that's and you got Jerry Seinfeld, who's like a jeans and a suit jacket, tennis shoes. Now he's dressing up like his last special. I think I don't know if he wore sneakers for that, but like Natasha Leggero for female comics.
Yeah.
She's, shabby chic or glamorous. Like she's her character is kind of a snob.
Right.
Kind of bitchy. And she overdresses she dresses like she's going to the symphony, not to tell jokes in front of a crowd, and I think that's smart because like her brand, she's gotten acting roles similar to that character that she does on stage.
Well, it feels like the idea was that you could always get away with more if you look really nice, I will say John Mulaney always looks really sharp.
Yes. Yeah.
He's always,
but I don't know if it's about sharp. I mean, I think it's a persona thing,
For sure. Yeah.
Because 300 guys in suits is just as generic as 300 guys that look like they didn't shower this morning and
For sure, yeah.
still wearing yesterday's clothes. Yeah, I don't know who I don't know who the rising comic is that, or how do you even feel about that? The
About
idea
like
of finding your persona and sticking with that kind of look.
well, I mean,
like
that's
standing
you know,
out. Which
like
you
well
did.
for there is a so the idea of doing stand up is like it's just you and the crowd, and the sort of old school like jokes are really, if that's not who you are, you know, if you're trying to do a Rodney Dangerfield type act, but you're you know, that's sort of hard to get away with. So now it's so much about being like just as genuine as possible and like selling who you are.
Yeah.
But then, you know, along with that comes like, well, who am I?
Right, exactly. And it's a tough
like,
thing, dude.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough. It sounds stupid, but it's really tough to figure out. And I don't think a lot of people know. I mean, honestly, if they're asked like, "What is my brand?" You know,
Right.
they
Right.
don't whittle it down far enough.
Right, and that's the hard thing about that was the hard thing for me, you know, doing the dry bar, because I didn't want to necessarily be a dry bar comic because they are so associated with being like squeaky clean, family friendly comedy.
Yeah.
And I mean, realistically, if I get to do whatever I want, I mean, you know, I'm definitely like saying some pretty messed up stuff on stage, like sort of like you know, wildly intellectually chaotic type ideas. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I think there has to be a really nice marriage between like how you look, what you're saying, and even the way that you use your voice. You know, like it all kind of has to coalesce into something. You know, you know, there's like a, can't think of this guy. I think his name's Joe List, but he's kind of a small guy with like glasses. If he came
Yeah,
out with like
that's
Bill,
his name. I can
you
hear
know who he
him.
is?
Yeah,
Yeah. So
absolutely.
if he came out with like Bill Burr energy, people would be like, this doesn't make sense at all, you know?
Right. Right.
Yeah. So it's it really just there is kind of a honing your persona on stage, but ultimately, you know, like that process. Some people they're there right away. You know,
Right.
if you're the hayseed from Kentucky and you're wearing overalls and you're like,
Yeah.
man, I feel weird out
Well,
here.
that would
Like
be the
that's
other.
who
So
you
that
are.
would be. I'm not into that, like his stuff, and nothing against him, I guess. But no, you just described somebody, and now I'm having like my elder moment or something here.
The hayseed from
Who?
Kentucky. I
Yeah,
think I
no,
described
but
about
the
five
big.
people.
No, I know. Oh, cable guy, Larry the Cable Guy.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's
But
like that's a well-defined persona right there.
right, but that you know what's funny is like but that yeah, that's kind of not him, but it is a genuine character. Like his real name is
Right.
like my last name. It's like
His
a
name is
Polish last name.
Lawrence Everside the Third.
I would love that if he ever came out like, well, I came up with Larry the Cable Guy due to the proletariats
Before
of
we
the
begin,
American South.
Would you like a spot of tea? Right.
No, he doesn't have a southern accent in real
Really?
life. Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
He used to be like hey, what's up everybody, you know, type of comic in the 80s.
Yeah.
Man, I can't think of his real name, but yeah, there's like it's pretty hard to find the clips too. But then he came out with this
if you try to share those, the Clintons will have you killed. I don't know why, but
but he you know, he defines, well, it's sort of like Rodney Dangerfield. You know, Rodney Dangerfield had an act and then got off the road, ran a club for like 10 years, but he honed in these one-liners that were just killer and delivered it in that way that sort of, you know, probably came from the fact that there was kind of that I don't get any respect thing came from the fact that he was trying to be a comic. He was a real comic. The industry never wanted anything to do with him for years. I mean, he was like 56 when he got his first spot, I think, or when he first started getting breaks.
So there's still
that whole like, dude, yeah, whenever people are like, hey man, do you want to do this, and it's like bad deal, I'm like, listen man, I'm 40, like I'm like that's a bad deal, and they're like, no, well, are you sure you don't want it? I'm like, no, I still want it. It's just you should know it's a bad deal. Like I'm gonna take it. What else am I gonna do? I'm 40. I'm never gonna be like, I live in Spokane. I'm not gonna go. I'm not gonna be cast in some kind of sitcom. I don't even think sitcoms exist anymore. You know what I mean? So I'm like, dude, I have nothing going on for me. Just give me your crappy, unfair to the artist gig.
it's all unfair. I mean, I don't think it matters what level you're at. Well, Tom Cruise has gotten more than his share, but you know what I mean. There's a
Yeah.
lot of that in any kind of
Well,
creative field.
before COVID hit, I was just starting. I think half my dates that they all went away now, but half of them were just things I was producing on my own. Just go to like a venue and I just work out a door deal, or I rent out a small performing arts studio or like a small theater or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's, to me, that's just the way to go, because then you're truly your own boss. I mean, everyone says, "Oh, you're stand up, you can be your own boss," but you really, you still have the club owners and the bookers and all these people that you're really catering to. Yeah,
It is, but but that's smart because the audience doesn't know how how it's put together.
for
So
sure.
you got your name on the outside of a theater. That's like a nice night out for somebody. Like they're like it makes you seem like maybe a bigger deal than you think you are.
Oh
You know.
yeah, I'm doing small theaters too usually.
Yeah,
Because
I saw Stephen Wright in a small theater. I mean, Stephen Wright's fantastic. Been doing it
yeah,
forever, and he's
I bet
like
he's
house.
charging more per ticket.
Yeah, he does pretty well, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, like small, like 300 or under. Like I usually I think Stephen Wright does like the Bing in Spokane, so that's like 600 to 700. Um, but like, yeah, if I can find venues that are like 200, that's a great wheelhouse, because I can usually market it on. Yeah, I used to be able to do all my marketing on Facebook, but now with the 2020 election, I think Facebook's become so toxic. I'm like, man, are people still even really using it the way they used to? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. We'll see what happens. Yeah, I'm going to promote I got a gig in Wisconsin in about 2 weeks, and I'll see. We'll see how it goes. I'll promote that, and
Yeah.
but no, it's not like anybody's coming out because they're like, oh, nobody's like, hey, that's the guy from Dry Bar, and
No, well, that's why you need promos and like radio and stuff if you can afford it. That's one
right,
thing I would say to anybody, like any comics listening, and I've had a lot on here, but I've also been behind the scenes at the radio station when someone's coming to town. The club wants, they've paid for a 60-second spot, and there is nothing out there on this person
well,
that
that's
you
what
can grab from, and
yeah.
and they should be, first of all, not even on their own website, if they even have a website. And like if you're touring, my advice to anyone like that, like you need to get some recording. You don't have to like post the whole special out there, but you need to like get a nice clean recording of your act and have that ready to go as a press kit to the club that you're headed to, so they can get that to the stations and promote you properly.
Yeah, no, it's any comic that's like, should I make a website yet? I'm like, do you have a fairly professional video of yourself? Because the reality is, if you have a website, that should be on the landing page. Like that should be right
Yeah.
there. Somebody can watch your clip, and then if they like you, they hire you. I mean, I was doing a lot of corporate gigs right away, so like that idea was already in my mind. But people want to have like a place for, I don't know, people to go see their dates, and it's like
Right.
how popular do you think you are?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's so funny when people are doing comedy and then they're really starting to get like gigs. There is a lot of excitement there, but it's like sometimes it's almost like, I always think of it as like like a new vampire in all those movies. They're like, the new vampires are the most hungry. Like, like that's
I wasn't aware, but
yeah, that's kind of
noted.
the way I look at like new comics, because they're like, oh, I'm closing out this open mic, and then I'm closing out this open mic, and I'm MC, and they'll have like all those kind of gigs listed, and they're all within like a 10 square miles of each other, and it's like, you don't need to start a website for that, dude. Like, there's not people that are like, oh, you finally filled this need.
Your next gig is in Appleton, Wisconsin.
Yeah, that's in 2 weeks.
Is that the same cluster of clubs that Spokane Comedy Tacoma, or is
Yep.
this a different? Okay, cool.
Nope, it's the same. It's all part of the, I don't know what they're in like a Bark Entertainment network, so they got Oklahoma City, Appleton, and that Skyline Comedy Club has actually been around for like 25 years or more, but they bought it about, I don't want to say 3 years ago, and then they got Spokane and
They were
Tacoma.
doing so well, and I hope that we just got to get through this whole trial that we're in. But like, I was so happy for them, because that family, because they start with Tacoma, come to Spokane. So, I mean, like they've got a burgeoning comedy empire. If people
for sure.
are ever allowed to gather again without dying. So,
Yeah.
how are things in Wisconsin? Do you know? Have you played there in the last year?
No, I haven't. That'll be my.
Or any of that. Like, how are they handling?
Well, they're about 180 person capacity this long. I think they're doing 50%. That's a nice thing about not selling tickets is I won't have to worry about capacity issues. So that's a nice thing about being a nobody. Because if I can get, I think they're at 50% capacity. It's so I drove from when this whole thing first started. I drove from Spokane to Missouri to go visit my brother-in-law who had just had a baby. Like they had a baby in April, so everything shuts down. Everyone's like, do we all have it? Like, is this this like a disaster movie? And no, the information was all over the place. So we were like, we got to go help them with this baby. We drove, and it was like a tour of the American COVID restrictions. It was like this weird version of like, oh wow, Montana's doing it this way. Wyoming, they don't care at all. like if you wore a mask in Wyoming in wherever it was, April or May, people were like, oh, look at this weirdo, like they couldn't believe it. And I will say it's funny. I think Montana is like the best in COVID restrictions because they try to make everything safe and they're trying to keep things open at a very minimal capacity, but like they're not going overboard. It was like Washington. It was like we got to shut everything down, and these people's businesses are struggling. And in Idaho is like free for all or whatever. Yeah. So.
Again,
It's
not the opinions of this podcast.
Yeah,
although I saw plenty of advertisements on my television telling me to come to Coeur d'Alene, come to Idaho.
Man, it's funny.
Nothing's changed.
And you can go to a water park in Idaho, man. Like it's wild, dude. Yeah, like water parks were already. I mean, I guess maybe if you were a water park person before, you already were battling E. coli. So like, what's one more thing,
Right.
I went to. I mean, when I was Oregon, it was good too. But Oregon, you think of Eastern Washington and Western Washington as being like two different, very, very culturally, very two different. Man, Oregon is like Portland, and then the rest of the state is just that is like two different worlds when you're in Portland, and then when you're in like Bend, Oregon, or whatever.
Well,
it is
probably like Seattle versus the rest of Washington.
Yeah, but it feels even more pronounced there. Like and a lot again that it's almost like that whole I-5 corridor, and then you go over to you go across Ellensburg, and you're like, and it's just a different world, man. And that's
Can you move a little bit to your right?
Yeah, how's this? Wow, the poster.
The poster. You were trying to hide that. How big is that poster? Because that's mind blowing.
About 5'5". It's a ways back, dude. I don't know. Yeah.
And you don't want that. You're not the egomaniac that people might assume from this image right now. You want that down, but your wife won't allow it?
No, yeah. So this was this small theater in Tico, Oakdale. It's like a 200 person theater. It's been around forever. They found me and they were like, come and do a gig. And it's such a small theater. I showed up and I'm like, oh no, did we not sell any tickets? They're like, no, they're all next door watching the game. And she's like, she like goes outside. She's like, hey guys, come on, tell everybody the show's about to start. And people left this like bar, and a few of them were like carrying crock pots and like plates of like cookies and stuff, and then they all set it out all over the table, and it became like this community affair. And then I just went to the green room and we did this show, and it was they had made this 5'5" poster, which was really funny. It's the Empire Theater. You can see their logo at the top.
That's awesome, though.
They took my album cover and made this gigantic poster. And at the end of the night, I was like, "Wow, that's cool." I'm like, where did you guys get this printed in this town? I can't imagine this town even has a printer that can handle this. And they were like, oh, to them? Yeah, dude. That's hilarious. I grew up in a small town. I'm like, I know small towns. You guys are lucky if you were like, can get ink. You got to walk down the street to borrow a pen. And and I was right. They were like, oh, we have a guy who's an architect that works in Spokane and commutes every day. And we gave him his file and he gave us a good deal in the architecture and the CAD drawing or whatever. The big, huge printers that print out architects' plans. And so that's how they got it printed. And they rolled it up and they're like, do you want it? And it stayed in my office for, I don't know, a year. And then Amanda found it because I was going to throw it out. And she just thought it was hilarious.
You can't throw it out.
Yeah. Yeah. My mom does that stuff too. Like every once in a while, if she comes over to visit, she'll hang in my house like old like awards that I had.
Your mom was hanging in your house.
No, yeah. My mom hung herself a year ago on the ceiling fan.
I wasn't going that dark. I just
twirling around for a year. I can't take the poor girl down. Oh,
every time we turn on the fan, the overhead fan, it's.
We're like, why couldn't you have at least eaten a bunch of candy beforehand? Make it fun for us, Mom.
That's a pinata joke, kids. I love it.
Oh, but my mom will take, like, one time I came home and the kids were like, yeah, Nana was here. And then I'm like, hun, where did this, I got like a home Ec Student of the Year award one time. And my mom, she had like covertly hung that up somewhere in our house. And I was like, when did you hang this Home Ec Student of the Year award? And nobody knew. And then my mom thought it was the funniest thing in the world to have done that.
She's one of those people. That is fun to like move things around in other people's houses.
Yeah. So she smuggled it in. She found it and she like smuggled it and like she had a whole plan. So yeah, Amanda, she can have that. Yeah, that's it. Oh wow, where'd you find that?
On your website. Have you visited your website?
Oh yeah. Dude, it's been a while, man.
These are cool. You got like a whole. You said you hire artists from time to time to do gig posters.
Fiverr is a great resource. Yeah, that was man. When was that? Was like August. I want to say it was 2019. That was 2019. Yeah, that guy crushed it. I thought that was one of my favorite when he came up with that. It's funny. Originally, I was like, have me be buck naked, and he gave me one where there's a naked photo, and I showed it to Amanda, and I'm like, this is hilarious, and she's like, that's a children's slide. Maybe you shouldn't be naked in the children's slide. I was like, it's a good point. And so the guy threw shorts on me.
I don't know if this is common knowledge. I'm not saying it happened in our sleepy little town. I'm just saying that places that have public works like that you can climb on and possibly sleep inside at night when you don't have someplace else to be, can also be filled with urine.
Yeah.
And that's something that may or may not have happened in our town. I'm not saying maybe it's not a thing that happens now if it ever did happen. But yeah, when I found that out,
I guarantee you that is a toilet.
Never thought about it. Never in a million years.
Okay, so this is so this is a long time ago. I was in my mid-20s. My youngest son was 2 years. So I was probably only 25 years old. And I was like, he was just starting to like walk and get around. I was like, let's go down to the wagon and you can go down the slide. He was just starting to go down slides. You know what I mean? And so I was like, this is a perfect place.
This one's extra fast, Daddy. Why?
So we go downtown. It's the Irish parade, the St. Patty's Day parade. I didn't know it was St. Patty's. I mean, the women Irish are walking
parade.
The filthy Irish.
The Irish are marching.
It was the tail end of it. It was the tail end of it. I don't know if you've ever gone down there, but a ton of women are like in like really tight, like barely clad. Sometimes they're in like pasties, and I'm like, whoa,
I haven't encountered that, but that sounds fantastic.
There was like, it was 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I remember there was this really drunk lady wearing like a tube top, and her boobs were just falling all over the place, and she's like falling down because her high heels are so high.
They were green boobs.
Yeah, I mean, they were trying to fit into a green piece of clothing, and they were not doing a good job. Yeah, they were getting. these knockers were getting into a fight with each other because they were trying to escape.
Shamrock shaped.
Well, I felt lucky either way. And so we go to the slide, and he's like, and he's starting to climb on his own. He's like, I'm doing it. I'm like, this is great. You're doing it. And we get to the top, and some dude had taken a dump on the platform, and I'm just like, luckily it was in the corner. Like we didn't have, but I'm like, and there's, what's really weird is there was a bunch of pine cones. And I'm like, is he burying it, or is that what he wiped with? How crazy was this person?
Yeah, it was a giant squirrel.
Dude, this thing was bigger than a squirrel. Yeah. All right,
it's a Hanford squirrel.
And if a squirrel pooped that out, it would just look like a snake shedding its own skin. So I go to the slide, and I'm like, please don't let there be like a brown streak down the slide. And I get there, it's fine. He goes down. He's like, again. I'm like, no, we're leaving this place. It's full of sin and crap.
They don't show any of that on the come visit Spokane commercials or the landing page, the homepage. Oh my gosh. I got to let you get out of here. I do want to play one of your sketches here. And we were talking about your tour of America, kind of. And this is the differences between states. In this case, it's the difference between the cities of Seattle and Spokane. It's the West versus the East. And this is among the many sketches that you post to social.
Man, it was so much better out here in the 90s. Like everywhere you looked, it was all like just grunge. Man, I remember in the 90s, that's when it was awesome to live here. Everywhere you look, it was just like a farm. I think the probiotics in this kombucha have really sort of helped the enzymes in my gut. This loogied up Snapple makes me shit good. I feel bad about eating eggs, but if I'm going to, I'm going to get free range. Once you have eggs right from a chicken's butt, you will never go back. You gotta wash the shit off. Hey, I'm gonna get tickets to Beyonce. Hey, Jeff Dunham is coming to town. Okay, kids, there's a junkie over there. Did you wear your needle shoes today? We don't want any more pokes. Oh man, there's a junkie over there. That's my junior high girlfriend. Hey, Carol. Oh my God, that guy has a gun. Guys, move, go. Oh my God, that guy has a gun. That's the Glock I want for my birthday. I'm gonna get my name engraved in it. I'm gonna shoot it at the sky. Are you kidding me right now? Just listen to another podcast, I guess. Are you kidding me right now? This is ridiculous. I don't know any of these people. Where did they all come from? This is why I live here. I live here to drive. I want to drive. Move!
Pretty dang accurate.
I don't know any of those people. That's the thing I loved about living in a small town. When people leave a small town, they're like, who are these people? I've never met these people. Like, that's why conspiracies can flow so easily, because they're like, I don't know who voted for him. I mean, I don't know anyone who voted. It's like the world is more than just this 375 person town.
I've been, I used to laugh at my dad would talk about how bad traffic was getting in Spokane, and it would just make me laugh. I think it is worse than it. I mean, there's certain streets like Division,
sure.
And you can get being parked when you're supposed to be going. Never going to feel good. Doesn't matter if it's 200 cars or 1,000 cars. It just sucks to be stuck in that kind of traffic.
But if it becomes part of your daily lifestyle, that's when you really. But Seattle's.
But a sick part of me, it'd be like, I mean, you gotta you're not going to change it. So you're like, hey, I get to listen to that audiobook now. I'll finally finish that podcast today, because that's the only way you can deal with your situation.
Well, I've always thought the people in Western Washington that had the sweetest deal was people live in like Bremerton who take the ferry over, and then they're like working right in downtown Seattle.
Yeah, because I was like walk or bike or something onto the ferry. Yeah.
You just chill in that ferry for 40 minutes and read a book or listen to a pod or whatever, do one of those puzzles that are just endlessly never done on the ferry. I always thought that was the way to live in Seattle, because Bremerton's still pretty, or at least was cheap a couple of years ago, but it's way cheaper than living in Seattle. But like your commute is way, way better than, somebody who lives in like Bellevue or Redmond or something like that.
Yeah. I made the mistake of 25 miles from my job that's not that far. That's
Oh
doable.
yeah,
That'll take
dude,
you 25
that's terrible.
minutes. 2 hours later, you're like,
Yeah, every day.
yeah, it's horrible. This is available, I think, on your
Oh,
website.
that's an old.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
is.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a different cover now. Wow, did I give that to you? Where did you get that from?
I think we paid for it. We like to support our comics.
Oh, that's so funny. Do you mind? Actually, you know, I'm in my office right now. I can show you what the current. Can I show you the current
Yeah, absolutely.
one? Yeah. All right.
Phillip Kopczynski. Follow him on Facebook. You'll get more of those videos. Sticks it to both sides. That's what we like about Phil.
Yeah. Okay, so the current one, it's like this now. Comedy with Friends. It's got before I could start
Not like this. You're
No,
saying
it's
that's
totally
different.
That was actually kind of like a test thing that I did, so I could sell it. But the artwork that finished it. So I used to do a show where I was before I had like
now?
well, it's my show or the
No, the book. I'm just being.
no,
being
it's same book.
dick.
Same book. But before I had like an hour, I would close out a show and do 25 minutes. But the first 3 sets would be 3 characters that I did. One was like a transgender redneck. Another one was a guy named Brian who just got out of jail and was trying to start his band after having a hiatus, and like everything was his fault. It was like other people's fault, but his life was just slowly falling apart. And another one was a reality star show from like a prank show that had his whole life fall apart, and he was trying to restart his life by going back to stand-up comedy. And yeah, man, it was a lot of fun. And so those 3 monologues were the beginning, and were what are in there, and then also like a couple other monologues, and then a bunch of like goofy sketches and stuff.
Well, it's smart. It's funny. It's smart of you to have merch. I mean, and not everybody wants to buy a T-shirt. So
Right.
I think whatever you can have as a takeaway, because that's the problem. Like, as when you're going to see comics and there's 3 on the bill, you don't know everybody, but you're like, this Phil guy is funny. You don't even leave the club remembering why he was funny a lot of times, right? You don't remember the specific jokes or whatever. And if you didn't like grab something, to remind, like, I gotta look this guy up on Facebook later or whatever. Like, it's just, so that's another unsolicited piece of advice for comics. Follow Phil and have T-shirts. Your T-shirt's funny too, but I didn't.
It's a dirty shirt.
Yeah, it's an interactive shirt. It's got a message on the front and then a hidden message underneath. Very funny.
Yeah, man. It's there's a whole little empire, and it's funny. Comics at all different levels are selling merch. So after a while, I was like, because at first I'm like, oh, that's ridiculous. I'm not gonna be a retailer. That's not why I got into comedy. And then this headliner one time was like, no, you have to, because he's like, the only way you can actually earn income. And I found out, like, a lot of times, if you do, especially doing clubs, you're going to do better on your merch than your actual pay. If you have something that's going to sell well,
Right.
Yeah, that T-shirt allowed me to tour, man. Like
Should we, let me see if I can find it.
I can describe it real quick. But it's a really smart shirt. There's a lot of nuance. Yeah, man. That's wow. You got that book a long time ago. That blows me away. Yeah. Wow, that's funny, man. I haven't seen that cover for like
I think my
4
wife
years.
actually bought it. I mean, I think
That's good.
Yeah. No, I mean,
one time a guy bought. Yeah, I'm glad you didn't steal it. One time a guy bought it from me, and then I came back to the area a year later, and he's like, I bought your book, and it made me realize, like, man, I think I can write a book. Like, God, if I read yours, and I was like, anybody can do it. And I was like, I don't know if that's a compliment, man. I'm barely literate, and I can write better than this guy.
Wow, anybody can do it. That's horrible.
Well, it's funny. I have so many like drunk conversations with people. Yeah, so if you can't see that, it says, oh, there you go. Yeah, I don't quit when I'm tired. I quit when I'm done. And then you flip it up and it says, this shirt is about giving head. Yeah. Yeah, man, that shirt.
It's funny. It's so funny.
That shirt made comedy profitable for me. I've sold a lot of those shirts, dude.
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna move on to something else now.
Yeah. Do they only? Is it a unisex shirt, or who's buying the shirt?
It's funny. I would say a lot more women buy it. I kind of thought dudes were going to buy it as a joke. A lot of guys buy it too. I'd say it's a lot closer than what you think. I wouldn't say it's 50-50, but it's a pretty even thing. It's always funny because a lot of real big dudes buy it, which is pretty funny to me. Like, yeah, I always sell out a double XL, like, it's the quickest,
Okay, where can people find you, Phil?
Phillip Kopczynski on Instagram, and TikTok is where I really post the most stuff now, just because it's the most fun. And you can find me on Facebook, or you can listen to my podcast on any streaming service. It's called Dangerous Loner with Phillip Kopczynski. Everywhere.
Oh, Dangerous. I get it. At first, I thought it was LOANER, and I thought that's funny, but no, it's like, like you're in some dangerous rent-a-car. I don't know what. That's so bizarre that my mind went there instead of the obvious place. But.
No, Dangerous Loner, mainly because my acting agency, that seems to be what my look is. Those are all the roles I get.
We'll discuss that next time. That's awesome.
Yeah, sounds good, man. Yeah. All right, man. Well, hey, thanks it's good talking to you, Dan. Hope you stay safe, and maybe we'll see each other in real life soon.
Take it easy.
Cheers.
I hope so. Bye.